we're talking about one of the greatest basketball players of all time. We're talking about the most dominant offensive player the game has ever seen. We're talking about a guy that for a 3 or 4 year stretch was the most powerful, strongest, largest, impactful player in the league from like 99 to 2004. We're talking about a guy that played in an era of some of the greatest big men in NBA history, including Dikembe Mutombo, Chris Webber, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, and the list just really goes on. We're talking about actual physical centers. We're talking about when you can actually foul people and it wouldn't be called. We're talking about a guy that dominated the NBA pretty much from his birth of, when he was drafted to probably around the time of the end of his Miami days. And you're going to talk about Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert got dunked on by Spencer Dinwiddie last round. Rudy Gobert is a guy that sits here and makes jokes and puns about certain people and how they play. Rudy Gobert is currently trying to make an organization choose, similar to Shaq. I'll give him that. Him or Donovan Mitchell, and where Shaq kind of had to make that call about him or Kobe back in the day. But one of them is an NBA top 75 player of all time. One of them has 4 championships. One of them has multiple MVPs. One of them has defensive player of the years, all pros, defensive all pros. And the other one has a couple of defensive player of the year awards. It's not close. I mean, you're telling me is Rudy Gobert better than David Robinson? Are you telling me that Rudy Gobert is better than Alonzo Mourning? I can't see that. Are you telling me he's even better than Dikembe Mutombo? And Dikembe's not even known for offense. We're just talking about straight up defending bigs. There's not a chance on the earth that Shaq doesn't give him a minimum of 50. If we're including today's era of fouls, Rudy's getting fouled out within the first half. It's not even a question. Shaq is the most physically dominating individual. And since this is a hypothetical, we can pick a time frame to where Shaq actually goes out there and beats his ass. We can do Orlando Shaq, we can do Miami Shaq, we can even do Phoenix Shaq, where he was literally clearly had lost a step. I would still give the edge to Shaq. It's a one dribble turnaround, take your 2 steps, and you're dunking right on Rudy Gobert. It's not even close. Shaq was a 300-pound, 7'2" monster that within the area of the paint was his domain. There was never a question. I don't know where he thinks he's going to get a clean block, like Shaq is going to go for the sky hook like Kareem or a fadeaway off the block. Shaq's literally going to put the ball down. He's going to put his shoulder in your chest. He's going to eat you alive. I don't understand why this is even a thought, a question, a debate. It's comical. Rudy Gobert can't score more than 15 points in a playoff game when his team is in jeopardy of losing, and he is regarded as one of the biggest liabilities in that series because we went small, and by we I mean Dallas. The offense ran through Shaq on every team he was ever on, even when he was playing with Dwayne, even when he played with Kobe. Granted, those superstars had their opportunities to do their own things as well, but the offense fed through Shaq, and when Shaq was doubled, he would kick out. It's not close. Shaq by 100, no questions.
Kevin, I mean, the way that I see this whole, I guess you would call it beef at this point, just the verbal shots have been thrown back and forth between Gobert and Shaq. Honestly, I just kind of find it amusing because Rudy's making this point that he would essentially lock up Shaq. Like, like he's basically saying that he would essentially put himself up as like one of the greatest defenders as far as defending bigs in NBA history. And I just find that absolutely comical because, I mean, Kevin, we're old enough to remember Shaq. Shaq was the most dominating force that we've ever seen in the NBA. Granted, we don't consider him as the greatest basketball player that's ever played in NBA history. That belongs to Michael Jordan. I don't want to hear anybody say anything about LeBron James. It is Michael Jordan. But when it comes to just an individual that just took over a game, and as far as just taking it over, just being a dominating force, the NBA will never see someone like Shaq as far as just dominating the game. It's never going to happen again. And essentially, you know, I don't know where Rudy's really kind of getting this thought process from. I mean, don't get me wrong. Rudy Gobert is what I would consider a solid NBA player by modern standards. And I mean, I have to kind of give him a little bit of credit just based off of what he's done in his career. I mean, he's pretty much a finalist pretty much every year or every other year when it comes to NBA Defensive Player of the Year. So it's not like I'm not going to sit here and say that Rudy Gobert is just dog water or he's trash at basketball. He's not. Defensively, he's pretty solid. And on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, his game is lacking compared to what Shaq did. But when it comes to this one-on-one matchup between Rudy Gobert and Shaquille O'Neal, it's literally just comical. I mean, you could go through Shaq's entire career, like Kevin just mentioned, where it doesn't matter whether it was Orlando, the Lakers, Miami, and even Phoenix. Shaq dominated every aspect of the game on those respective teams. Maybe Phoenix is the one where you would kind of, maybe pull that back a little bit, but nobody found a way to stop him outside of just fouling him. That's where the whole Hack-a-Shaq method came from because he dominated the paint unlike anybody that's played that position before. Shaq would go out there and average 30 by just utterly dominating the opposing center he was going up against. And he went up against all-time great defenders. He went up against David Robinson, Mutombo, and there were other great defenders that he went up in his time, and he literally knocked them over like bowling pins. Shaq, like Kevin said, he's 7'2". He weighed over 300 pounds, and nobody could really find any sort of effective way to slow him down. It didn't even matter if he was being double teamed or sometimes even triple teamed. His physical presence that he brought to the game of basketball is probably one of the most astounding things I've ever seen when it comes to just a center in the NBA, because by and large, nobody's really been able to replicate that type of physical domination at the center position like him. There have been great NBA centers that have come and gone, but when it comes to Shaq specifically, this one-on-one matchup between him and Rudy would get cooked. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to Rudy. Rudy is an NBA basketball player, and that deserves respect just by itself. But this matchup would literally be a walking mismatch. I mean, Shaq would probably average 35 to 40 points in this matchup. And like Kevin said, if they ever even got into a situation where they actually played one-on-one in a real game where both of them are in their prime, Rudy would probably be out of the game within the first 15 minutes of the game, because Shaq would just literally make it a point of emphasis to just essentially abuse him down low and essentially just dunk on him once he would get, the right position on the offensive side of the ball. This whole debate, it all started because Shaq went on his podcast. Somebody had mentioned that Rudy Gobert would do a decent job defending him, holding him to, I think the quote was, holding him to 12 points. And Shaq responded by saying, yeah, in the first 3 minutes. And as far as I'm concerned, Shaq wasn't lying. He was truthful. He was honest in that regard. And Rudy just saying that he would lock his ass up. I don't think Rudy understands the level of physicality that Shaq brought to the game. I mean, he went up against bigs, 6'10", 6'11", 7-footers, and literally made it like a walk in the park to go up against them. I mean, Shaq, for God's sakes, I think in playoff series, he would average at least 30 to 35 points a game and get at least 10 to 15 rebounds. And not only that, get some blocks and steals on top of that. Shaq is one of, you could basically say he's like a top 10 player of all time. And Rudy Gobert is nowhere near that. For God's sakes, I don't even think Rudy Gobert is in that top 75 NBA players list that they came out with earlier this year. He's nowhere even close to that. So with Rudy Gobert making all these comments that he would lock his ass up, good luck. This would be a one-sided affair. And to be quite honest with you, it would just be comical. So this whole thing, when it comes to Rudy Gobert, I find it comical, and Shaq would just destroy him. It's as simple as that.